Okay, my claim of fact is that the American film rating system is not a regulated system. And when I say a regulated system, I do mean in terms of a set practice to follow. You know, they have certain criteria to meet, that kind of a thing. The first premise that I'm going to give you is that the Motion Picture Association of America, who that's the association that's in charge of giving these films ratings, keeps the names of their employees under lock and key. And I found this out from a documentary called This Film Is Not Yet Rated. And basically this entire documentary went about trying to find these people. They actually had to hire a private investigator and follow these people in and out of the building, run license plate numbers, and that kind of a thing. According to Oakley Anderson Moore, who is a filmmaker who's trying to navigate the Motion Picture Association, there are no publicly available records of its proceedings. Its members' identities have been kept secret since its inception nearly 30 years ago. This is a bit of an older article. But no one knows who these people are. When you call them, they don't give a name. They just answer that it's the MPAA. And the MPAA claims that they keep their raters' identities a secret to protect them from industry influence, but ironically enough, the only people that they do have constant contact with are the major film studios that put the big movies out. And obviously, they're not trying to keep themselves from influence if those are the only people they talk to. Former MPAA employees are held to a very extensive non-disclosure agreement that bars them from ever speaking about anything that ever happened during their time with the MPAA. And one of the former employees, whose identity has been kept a secret, said that he had been threatened with a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. Ouch. My second premise is that the ratings for similarly shot and similarly executed scenes, depending on whether, in the event of a sex scene, if it's a man and a woman, typically that type of a scene will earn an R rating, whereas a homosexual scene, 2 men, 2 women, typically earn an NC-17 rating. In This Film Is Not Yet Rated, they examined a couple of different types of scenes. First being masturbation. Natasha Lyonne in But I'm a Cheerleader masturbated fully clothed. You could not see anything, and that scene earned that movie an NC-17 rating. Whereas Kevin Spacey masturbating in American Beauty in the shower, you could see what was going on, received an R rating. And then when it comes to actual sex scenes between 2 people, in Boys Don't Cry, where Hilary Swank gave Chloe Sevigny oral sex, that movie was given an NC-17, again, very exclusive to that scene. Whereas Mysterious Skin, or another example, Mysterious Skin, where Joseph Gordon-Levitt was having anal sex with Brady Corbet, those received an NC-17 rating, whereas Single White Female, heterosexual sex scene with Bridget Fonda and Steven Weber, that movie received an R rating. The scenes were similarly shot. You could not specifically see any genitals, but different ratings. And my last premise is that the MPAA isn't looking to work with the filmmaker, but instead limit the film's audience depending on the content. The MPAA does not offer any direct feedback as to you need to cut this, and this will get you an R rating. For fear of censorship, according to the first president of the MPAA. The appeals process is completely kept under wraps and is really only explored in the most extreme of circumstances. The filmmaker behind This Film Is Not Yet Rated went through the appeals process and was not afforded the identities of the board members. Was very limited in the process, and it's very rare that a film will win an appeal. In this case, his film lost 10-0. And like I said earlier, the only entity that the film writers speak to on a constant basis are studio executives. They're not typically in touch with filmmakers themselves, and it makes it really hard for the two to work together to put a movie out for the audience it was intended for. So really, in conclusion, the American film rating system isn't as regulated as a lot of other, I don't want to say rating systems, but other entities that provide products to the public. With a system that was established to help the public decide what movies they do and do not want to see, it's very limited and not very effective.
Out of the way early. Did you read the introduction? I read through it, yeah.
All right, Sarah, the term regulated is awkwardly phrased here, and I know that you're trying to suggest that there is something that is not standard, something that is inconsistent about the rating system, but regulated makes it sound like there's some procedure that they're supposed to be following that they're not following, or there's no punishment for their failing to follow their own procedures. I think you need to maybe find a different way of phrasing this. I think it could be a lot simpler by arguing that the rating system is, like I said, inconsistent, or it is useless to filmmakers in determining what the content of their film should be. That would be a little bit more direct. You do start off suggesting you're going to preview what the supporting points are, but you don't really do that. You really just start in on that first point. The signpost on that point was okay, but it really just seems like you're presenting that piece of information on that first point. You're not really making an inference. You're just describing something that is going on here, as opposed to making a conclusion from that some harm occurs, that something untoward is happening, that procedure is being violated. You simply describe what happens there. The question on the later points concerning the anonymity of the ratings board, I'm still not sure why it's important that they know who the ratings board is, who is on the ratings board, how they vote on these particular things. The only implication that you have suggests that the filmmakers know this because they have contact with the folks, but outside people don't know this information. But you don't really have any proof that shows that the filmmakers have access to this information, or that they directly discuss this with the people on the board. I'm not sure that you've got any examples where that's been the case. You don't, even your authority that put the film together doesn't seem to be suggesting that, except in a very general way, because they have contact with the filmmakers, because the filmmakers submit their films. And I guess in the appeals process, I don't know, in the appeals process, it's not explained if the filmmakers go in front of the ratings board and talk to the ratings board members, and that's the kind of contact that they're talking about, or if it's simply that they resubmit the film again to this anonymous ratings board, who then sends it back and says, no, it doesn't meet those standards that we think are appropriate. So I think there's a lot of ambiguity on these particular points. You've got a couple of good examples to illustrate the inconsistencies of the rating system. I do think that you need to explain why the rating system matters and why anybody here should care. The truth of the matter is that anybody who wants to see something that is pornography doesn't really worry about the rating system, and they don't even have to pay the money to go and see that. That's available to them easily. The question is really, why does it matter if a major motion picture gets rated NC-17 or R or PG-13? And ultimately, it's a money issue. And so I think we talked about this a little bit. I think you need to develop that a little more as an explanation about why there's any controversy on this particular subject. You got a kind of a backhanded quote from the former president of the MPAA, and we have a vague reference to an anonymous statement by a former member of the MPAA who doesn't want to be identified and also doesn't say anything except that they were threatened with a lawsuit if they did say anything. So I'm not sure. Did they offer an opinion? And that's why they need to be kept anonymous? Or are they saying, I can't offer my opinion and leave me out of this? I'm not sure what inference I'm supposed to draw from that, so I think that needs to be a little bit sharper. There are several places where you present things that you suggest are facts. I think you need clearer citation of those things. You do a pretty good job speaking to the audience. It's organized. Like I said, the secondary claims are not always written as claims, and you had some good examples, like I said, to make the argument that there's some inconsistency there. I just think that it needs to be tightened a bit here and there as to what the point is that you are ultimately making. All right, thanks.